What's up, everyone? Tag a friend and let them know we're about to get into it.
Welcome to the Speak Her Podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Let's get started.
Help keep the Speaker Podcast ad-free. Hit the link below and buy me a coffee. Your support keeps the podcast free of interruptions while bringing you more impactful conversations.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Please share this and tag a friend who needs to hear this.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to hit that notification bell right now. Subscribe. We're across all streaming platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. We have hit our first major milestone as we get closer to the end of the year. We're now over 10,000 downloads, and we're tracking towards 11,000 downloads. I'm super excited about that. And I have lots of things coming up for the month of November. If you haven't heard, Heart and Soul is coming back next month. We're going to continue the discussion with our men, Black men, mental health and relationships. And that is a conversation you don't want to miss. We're going to jump right in without further ado. She has some sprinkles put on since last time she was here. The Dr. Charity Rowe-Marshall. Clap it up. She is here, y'all. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Had to give her some applause.
Okay. Listen, I'll take it. I will take it.
Yes. So how's everything going? Catch us up. Graduation, family. What's new your way?
Sure. So, wow, finally finished, literally, not just figuratively this time. So excited to have completed my doctorate in May. I honestly thought that I was going to take some time off, but that's literally not how it worked out. The Lord blessed me with an incredible opportunity, and I hopped right into my job as the executive director of STEM Foundation, previous scholarship foundation, right after graduation. So I've been working. I've been busy. I have been doing all the same things with my littles and wiping and church and all the things. So literally staying busy, but excited about the things ahead.
I'm so excited to have you here. We are ripping the Band-Aid off tonight, and I cannot wait to sit down and chat with you. One of the things I want to get into as far as this conversation, for those that you don't know, we are discussing marriage, dating, and relationships. And that's why Dr. Charity is here, because she just has an amazing perspective. And if you did not catch, initially I had her and her husband here, and I was like, oh, I got to have her back because we got to have girl talk.
Yes.
We love the hubby, brother in love, but sis, we need you to pull up.
No worries. Glad to be.
One of the things I want to hop into is how it really begins with you, meaning as a single woman, a lot of women, I've heard even some of my homegirls say that they don't want to start things, they don't want to do things until they get married. But life does not start when you're just getting married. Like defining a rival, and how your value doesn't just begin at saying I do.
Sure. So unfortunate myth, right? In our community, very specifically in the church. I grew up in a denomination that almost idolized marriage, not because it is a wonderful thing. Don't get me wrong. It is a wonderful thing, but it made it to where a woman's identity was solely tied to that goal. There wasn't a lot of emphasis on identity finding, on being secure in who you were, self-worth, detached from don't do the things that's going to send you to hell. Because I grew up Holiness Pentecostal. So there wasn't a lot of investment on who do you want to be, not even just outside of marriage, but outside of anything. Who do you want to be as a person in the world? What mark do you want to make in the world? What story do you want your life to be able to tell once you're gone? I didn't see a lot of that. We didn't have a lot of that. And so I, too, fell into the category of women that made it a fairy tale, right? That was the ultimate goal. I could not wait. Because of how I was raised, I couldn't even go to prom, right? So it was like a major emphasis on I cannot wait until I get married, until that is like the pinnacle. right? So much so that there were things about myself, about who I would grow to be, who I would love to be, who I have become, that I wish I would have invested the time to discover way before I met my husband. We come into this idea often that marriage makes us whole. But the truth is, the best kind of marriage, or the most successful marriage, is when both people come in whole. And it's not broken fragments. And sometimes as women, especially if you come from certain trauma narratives, you don't realize that when you carry those pieces into your whole space, it's doing nothing but ripping it apart and breaking crevices and opening up spaces really for the enemy to come in and divide. And so I think that I wish back then I would have been able to beckon, but here I am now saying it is so important to live and to discover who you are, what you want, before you're attached to anything. I love my children, and I know we'll get into motherhood later, but there were so many things that I didn't realize, that you don't just give up sleep. We kind of anticipate that, oh, you'll invest a different level of time. But there was a mental capacity and emotional capacity that I wish I would have really just refined very differently before I was spread in so many other places, working and being a wife and being a mom, and then even trying to become the person that the Lord wants me to be as well. I wish even I would have put that first, in my younger years, before I attached the mantles and assignment of my husband, of my children to my life. There is a lot of me that would advise single women: figure out who you want to be in the natural, but also fine tune who you're meant to be in the spirit before you acquire another assignment. Being married is an assignment. You carry your husband's mantle very differently. You will carry the assignment of your children until they're old enough to realize who and what they are called to be. If you are not secure in who you are, in the assignment that the Lord has placed you on the earth, what you'll find is that those lines will begin to blur, and you'll find yourself in multiple mini identity crisis, right? Every
Whoa, you're saying a lot. Wait a minute.
Sure.
Let's unpack that. Multiple identity crises.
Sure.
Can you unpack that for us? Because you are dropping gems.
Listen, we just talking.
Yes.
When I went to college, and I'm just using this in a very basic sense, I went because in my mind, I was a first generation college student on both ends. The goal was to make money. How can I make the most money? So I wanted to choose the profession, not even knowing if I actually, I had an idea, but not fully, I just knew I wanted to make the most money. And so I went to school at the best Florida A&M University, shameless plug. And I went for business. I knew I wanted to do something business savvy, but I allowed myself to kind of be talked into the world of accounting, right? If you're going to go into business, these pillar points, that, as they would say, will make sure that you make the kind of money you want to make. But I didn't realize that I was called to people. And so post-college, when I sat in a cubicle crunching numbers, miserable, having spent money in a degree that I then said, I hate this. But it was the fact that I had not invested enough time to say, I am an introvert, but the Lord has called me into extroverted spaces. And so if I am not engaging in the personhood and the identity and the character that the Lord has called me to be, I find myself in this mini crisis, right? Because now I have finished a degree, although I didn't get my degree in accounting. I minored or attempted to minor in accounting. I was trying to head towards a path that would have led me to a life unfulfilled, because I thought that the goal should have been money. The goal should have never been money. What I realized is that it was the intangibles that I needed to invest in order to manifest the tangibles. I need to know I'm not just good at administration and organization. I don't just speak well, but I meant to speak to a specific audience. And if I would have known that coming into degree seeking programs, right, I may have chosen, I love, SBI, so I'm a diehard for the business school at FAM. But at the end of the day, the way that I tried to come into even the degree, I would have done differently. And so I use that as an example to say, I ended up in a mini crisis. Like, man, I have this degree, and now what do I want to do with it? Because it's not even the thing that satisfies me. I don't even feel passionate about this. And I've done it for another cause that has nothing to do with what the Lord was causing me to do. And so it was the same thing. I found myself in relationships at times, trying to fulfill the look, right? Getting what felt like the perfect person with the perfect narrative, and really saying, but am I called to this space? And then when I found myself in spaces that I wasn't called to, now I'm dealing with the chaos of a space that I was never meant to be in.
Wow.
And that's when I saw those many identity crises come along, like, yeah, because you're hitting the wall of who you are versus who you're meant to be and the journey in between.
That is so good, Dr. Charity. And one of the things you touched on was exploring your identity and yourself prior to getting married. And a few years ago, I was in a relationship. He was talking marriage, told our families he wanted, thinking about the future and plans to get engaged the following year. But um I didn't realize I had other levels to me.
Mm-hmm.
And not that he was a terrible person, and there were some other things too, but the relationship came to an end, and thank God that it did because I would have made, how can I say this? He would have became a lifetime person when he was only meant to be seasonal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was at a certain level of Camille, but naturally and spiritually, there were other levels to myself that I didn't realize that God was gonna introduce me to another level of me,
Sure.
but
Sure.
he did not have the capacity for
Mm-hmm.
that. And so for you to say that, I think that's so true. When I look at myself, who I was 10 years ago compared to now, totally different person. And
Sure.
dating and being in a relationship where non-confrontational personality,
Mm-hmm.
introverted, I wanted you to
Mm-hmm.
like me and just would go along, even though if deep down I didn't like it or didn't want to,
Sure.
because I wanted to be the good girlfriend and people
Sure.
pleaser. And I was like, "Girl, no, I did not make you to be a doormat." And
Yeah.
so going to the military was really the place that he used, of all places, being 3rd generation apostolic, he sent me there for me to
Sure.
find my voice and a backbone. And
Sure.
so when I came out and who I am today, totally different person.
I
And when I
understand.
was able to use my voice and say no for the first time, oh, it set a lot of people off, like, "Camille said no?"
Yeah.
Yes, no. And
Yeah.
and and now, like, I'm more sure of myself, my confidence, has changed. I'm talking to people like, you couldn't get me to do that. And so it's making me realize affording me to realize the fact that God will take the single time to fashion me, not only
Mm-hmm.
for the other person, but for myself and for him. So
Absolutely.
I can be an asset and not a liability to the person that he has for me in the future. And also because whoever that person is, he's living on a different level. And so it's not
Right.
that we're low, but to sustain and function in his world so you don't feel like, why am I here? Why did he choose me?
Sure.
All these questions where
Sure.
you can walk into self-sabotage when you're comfortable, you're confident, and you know who you are, and you can thrive in his world and vice versa.
Right. I think some verbiage that you use was really important that came for me later. But if I would advise is to be sooner, the asset and the liability piece with people also works vertically, right? The Lord has established you for a set call. You are meant to be an asset, but you have to think, are my insecurities a liability? Are my holes a liability? Are the things that I will do to appease certain people, do they become a liability for my calling? Our ultimate, even in marriage, we don't consider that marriage has a mantle. And so
Mm.
sometimes we think that it's all about the emotional or the romantic side of marriage. And that's beautiful, sure. But at the end of the day, there's an assignment attached to the people that we connect to, not even just marriage, but the truth of the matter is, even on your way to marriage, having the right kind of friends, having the right kind of circle is important. Who will uphold your assignment? Who will pray, not just for you, but also pray for your marriage? Who will cover your family in the coming seasons? And how you attach yourself to people and things matters. And not just in the sense of personality likeness, while that does play a part, the truth of the matter is there were people that I considered my good friends that the Lord knew didn't need to be a part of the chapter of my life where I became a mother and a wife. Yeah, right. So a mother and a wife, let alone, sure, they could pray me through. We could talk on the phone all day, but there were some other things. And that's why, me and my cousin, we speak a lot. She's on about, how intense it is to really dive into that verbiage where the Lord wants us to come into the mysteries of his heart. Because the truth is the mysteries of God's heart usually, shine a light on the mysteries of our own, the things about ourselves that we are not privy or aware to yet. It's at the appointed time that the Lord will reveal certain things to us. And so you talked about even being at certain levels now. The person who I am now, it's not that I never had a clue was coming, but I never knew what some of the journey would entail. And the truth is I could have avoided some pit stops and some pit holes and some all of the things had I really found myself in a surrendered and a postured place before the Lord, not just to know him, but asking him to show me.
That's so good. That is so good. And even in that, Dr. Charity, first of all, if y'all are enjoying this conversation, be sure to tag a friend, share a like. We're having a really good conversation. One of the things I want to ask you as we dig deeper into this conversation, stewarding this season emotionally, spiritually, even from a creative standpoint. And, we're talking about the levels of ourselves because at that time in my life, I was not podcasting. I had my lash brand, but I was so, behind the curtain, and I was living a life from a shrunken state. And fast forward, ironically, after the relationship ended, God had me to pivot and go into digital media with podcasting, and boom, and here we are. And, um, the desire to continue my education from one point being an undergrad college dropout to now I'm a first year PhD student.
Yes,
But
congrats.
thank you. You're one of the people that I just, look up to, like, man, she's awesome. And but the person I was with did not encourage or desire some of those things. And so again, although the relationship ended, I'm thankful for the fact that it did, but I
Yes.
also learned of the importance. We think about being unequally yoked is just a spiritual thing, but also it ties into other areas of your life. Do you have the desire to start a business, or do you have the desire to further your education? Do you like to travel? Do you like new things? Yes, the spiritual part, church part matters, but there are other components of our lives that falls under that umbrella of whether we're yoked unequally or not.
For sure. So I love, I'm telling on myself, but I like the Bridgerton series, right?
Yes.
And it highlights an era where marriage was more transactional, right? While it is not that deep for us now, I think
Mhm.
that sometimes we fail to realize that even the people who love the Lord, um, and are called according to his purpose,
Mhm.
everybody has their own stuff, right? So you can love him, you can speak in tongues, read your Bible 3 times a day, and be a horrible steward of money, right? Or you can have different vices that go against the will of the Father.
Mm.
Who you marry, and I liken friendship in the same way, right? But who you marry matters outside of the four walls of the church and outside of their relationship with God. That is why I go back to saying, like, how I wish um someone would have told me, right? But now I tell everybody that I'm that single and waiting and looking. You really need to get in the trenches of who you are and who you are meant to be. Because let's say, if everybody wants to be a millionaire, right? So everybody, but are you actually preparing, budgeting, being financially disciplined enough for that lifestyle? And then whoever you're going to attach to you, are they capable of going in the direction where you are asking the Lord to bless, to
Or
favor,
learning together. At least
or
working
learning
towards it,
together?
yes.
Right. It matters. But I use that to say everybody wants to be a millionaire, but we're talking about other things, right? If you're called to be a preacher, you're going to need somebody that knows how to intercede, right? And we're not talking about coming to the table with a level of perfection. What I'm more so mentioning is a level of awareness, heightened awareness, right? Even I am not the person yet who the Lord has called me to be, but being aware of who I am now and being aware of where I am going helps me decide that relationship, that friendship, that may not be the best for me, right? A friend of mine, she's a soror of mine, and she talks a lot about how earlier on, one of the things that she was very intentional about is the fact that there is an addictive personality in her bloodline, right? And so because she knew that, the way that she would steward herself as a gift for whoever the Lord is preparing for her is to be able to say, if you struggle with discipline, if you also have an addictive person, you have something that you can't, you and I might not need to come together, because I already know how Paul talks about everybody having a thorn, right? We have to come into knowing not just the great parts about us and how the Lord will use us and favor us and platform us. How is the enemy about to set you up? What's in your bloodline? What is in your innate DNA, the part of your flesh that even you are going to have to kill daily? And being able to steward that knowledge, that's what I'm saying, like stewardship, not just over tangibles, but over the intangibles, becoming more aware of your gifts, your graces, but also your kryptonites, the things that will slip you up, the people that will slip you up. There are some friendships before I met my husband, we not even entertaining, because I already know I will be in a sunken place with you, and choosing to avoid some of those things because of that heightened level of awareness, I think is top tier stewardship in singleness, right? Coming to a place where it's not just about all the good that but the parts of me that the Lord is still refining, and giving him the space to continue to refine those things before he calls you into a present season.
Dr. Charity, you are unloading the clip and I love it. One of the things you said, you were talking about friend circles, and one of the things I've noticed in this season of my life, we reside in a place of transition, and as you get closer to crossing over into the next chapter of your life, there are some ruffling of feathers, and I've noticed in the season there have been people falling off.
Honey.
And we prayed that prayer, and it's so crazy in the last 6 weeks, and I've prayed it before, but in my prayer time, in my devotion time, in that quiet time, I was like, God, if there's anybody around me that doesn't mean me well, not
careful, because he will.
I prayed the prayer again, and I was like, for the next season, the blessing, people there that don't mean me, wish me well, harm, like went down the list. And within 2 days, like, what?
Honey, it's a real thing. So
Man, I'm just like, I feel like Survivor, and I'm the last person standing on the island. When
Listen.
I say he's been clearing the room, and I'm like, them she's like, come on.
Yeah.
He's like, them two, they gotta go. And I'm like, man. And then he's like, but you prayed it.
Right. You asked. You did
and
ask.
Here we are.
Right. I would love to encourage you otherwise, but the truth of the matter is it gets worse, right? I was told before I married my husband, you need to brace yourself for impact, because getting married and then becoming a mother will show you, not tell you, but show you who is meant for you and who isn't. And you will see relationships fall. Just pray for the Lord to replenish. Now, I didn't understand that advice prior to us getting married, because in my mind, a lot of the spaces or the friendships that I had were solid. I am not, people often have me, and I should be a little embarrassed to say this, but I am not. People often have my personality confused. I am actually very much an introvert. I like to really be by myself in the house. People think because when they engage with me, I'm so, whatever. And that's really not true. I said that to say that means that a lot of my friends were long-term friends. You know, we had been friends for a while. I think at the point that I got married, I only had one newer friend, and she still had been around for at least a year or two. And literally within 30 days, 30 or 60 days post-wedding, I had lost 3 friends. And prior to
Wait. You lost 3 friends?
lost, and you know, I was so, mind you, somebody did tell me to brace for impact. I could not have imagined, like, these people, I'm talking about 10-year, 15-year, 20-year friendships falling by the wayside at the transition of a season for me. And so it hit my husband and I really, really hard. We could not wrap our minds around it, but you know what? We were like, we're going to press forward. Moving into motherhood, which is a whole nother story for me, because I lived most of my life believing that I wasn't going to be able to have children naturally. And so when I got pregnant, it was really like, whoa, we're going to incubate a little bit, because we didn't know that this miracle was going to be possible. And I entertained some difficulties on the front end of my first pregnancy.
Right.
But by the time, fast forward, I had my daughter, more friends, 2 specifically. And so I watched my little mini micro circle that had to be maybe only like 7 people or 8 people literally cut in half within it, because I got married and then that following year I got pregnant. Just dissolve. And the harder thing for me was that a lot of them fell without closure. And so I struggle with the Lord, like, what is happening? Because you would think, especially as a single woman, sometimes when you're amongst single women, everybody's like, oh, we can't wait for you to da 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 da. And everybody's talking about the celebratory nature of the sisterhood or the space prior to the blessing. But once the blessing arrives, sometimes it does become a difficult transition to carry certain friendships into the next space. And so I said all that to say, while I was grieved for a season, what I realized on the back end is that when the Lord says he will not leave you lack concerning his promises, he means it. And so if whoever leaves, or when whoever leaves, deal with it, grieve it, which is important too. But who the Lord sent, honestly, we didn't skip a beat. You know, I came into adult friendships, some of my adult friendships, and not many, 1 or 2, you know, but it made it to where I realized, you know what, Lord, you are still looking out for me. You are still covering me. And so I said all that to say, as a single woman, also being able to vet the friends that you're going to be able to carry into your next space. Is your homegirl secretly struggling with jealousy? Is your good girl secretly struggling with envy? When you get your blessing, are they behind the scenes? You pick up on something a little strange. Now, you know, when Ked and I got engaged with one of my friends, I said, she's acting a little weird. Like, I don't know. It's like she is not wanting to come around anymore. And, you know, but all of that came out later, that everybody cannot handle, you know, when the Lord chooses to bless you, or the timing in which the Lord chooses to bless you. And so, I think being able to vet your friendships, and I'm going to plug this right here. I know this isn't a friendship episode, but
Come on, let's go.
a sorority sister of mine, when she found out that I got engaged, and I will forever, I don't know if I ever doubled back to her. And so I'm going to send her this so she knows that I am talking about her. But she sent me this almost like open journal that she wrote post her wedding to new brides. Like, hey, here are 10 things that I learned. You might want to grab a hold of these. And one of the things that she talked about is not using the longevity of friendships to determine the proximity of the friendship in your married season.
That right there.
Yes.
Wait, because
Yes.
I went through that this past month, and it hurt, but I had to learn, you got to know when to pull back, and holding on to people just because I've known you for 20 years, 25 years, and being loyal because, well, I've just known them for so long. But the character, the integrity, and
Yeah.
I've learned, especially being at where I go, and you know I go to church, being under that type of leadership, it makes you really revisit integrity and character under the microscope like a petri dish. And
Sure.
and I'm looking at things differently now versus before joining 3 years ago, and I'm like, "Wait, wait a minute,"
Yeah.
blew my spot up because I thought, like, I knew, but when you see it at that level, it's like, "Oh, wait, I never thought about I didn't read the fine print. Wait."
Sure.
And I didn't read the terms and
Sure.
conditions, and to see it now, fast forward, that
Yeah.
word "friend," I'm
Yeah.
not so quick to throw it around,
Right.
and
Well, and the other thing is about one thing so I'm a super accountable person, right? I don't
yes.
struggle with accountability. So when things end or things don't go the way that I anticipate that they should, I always take a moment to say, what could I have done better? Or what was it about me? And one thing that I have realized is that at the failure of a thing, there's an opportunity for a mirror. And what I realized is that just like in relationships, also in friendships, you'll see red flags, you'll ignore them. Right.
Mhm.
Or you will realize, or I've had moments where I've had to think to myself, why was I even that type of friend? Right. Because I had to come, and I'm talking about me, not y'all.
Right,
Okay.
no,
But my
that's
personal
good. No, yes.
testimony was
Right.
about, I did for a long time struggle with that hero complex. I
Mm.
struggled with that savior, wanting to be there and help and do and become and all the things. But those holes within us also manipulate the relational space that we have with people. And so it could have been that the Lord intended for the friendship to go one way, but by the time I put my hand where I should not have, or I put my heart where I should not have, or I did not allow the Lord to come and intervene, but I came with the solution. Then I have disrupted the intent of the space. And so, all that to the same point to say about character and integrity, there were things that I had to turn around at myself and look at and say, hey, we need to fix that. Now, don't necessarily struggle with some things, but also it is a struggle to not be able to identify certain traits in other people. Why are you ignoring people who struggle with pride? Charity. I had to ask why are you, no, it's too many insecure. Somebody got to be sure themselves in your circle, because if it not, you need to figure out what your magnet is attracting to. And that's in the romantic and the friendship space as well, right? Who are you attracting? What are the things that you are not allowing the Lord to deal with? What are they attracting you to? Right. And then when you find yourselves in some of those failed spaces or those lessons, right? Realizing, you know what? I never even had to learn that. I could have called that out. I could have really asked the Lord, just like in my romantic space, that I want the Lord to be the center. In my friendship spaces, I want the Lord to be the center too. And usually when you start inviting the Lord into your friendships, just the way that you invite him into your dating spaces, he'll be like, let me show you this right here. Let me expose this about them, but also about you.
Yeah.
So that moving ahead, you don't settle even for friends, right? Because, I've known, so that's my sister for 20 years or so and so. No. Sister at this point in her adulthood might be dealing with some envy, and she might need to deal with that. And that's not your job. That's the Lord's job. And so, being able to check even those spaces within ourselves as we are also evaluating how we ended up in certain spaces, I think that dual process helps to build our character and integrity.
I love all of that. So as we turn the corner in this conversation, outside of a romantic, relationship like your marriage, what does wholeness look like for you? How do you define that?
Um, so transparently speaking, coming from the traumatic background that I have come from, um, wholeness meant dealing with the secret spaces that I didn't want to deal with, because I didn't need for my husband, and I definitely didn't want for my children to deal with my stuff. I only knew that though because I grew up in a house with a parent that I didn't realize until I was an adult had been dealing secretly, emotionally, and mentally, and even with spiritual trauma that trickled down into the way that they managed their household as a wife and as a mom. Um, Wholeness for me meant truly exposing and dealing with my own secret spaces. right? The things that were hard for me to kind of wrap my mind around, the things that, so for instance, most people know that I sing.
Very
And
well.
and for many years, I found myself comparing, but secretly, not to other people, right? I was secretly comparing. And I remember being at a conference with a sister friend, and I think she's actually on. And I was sitting and watching someone sing. And I remember internally telling the Lord, like, see, this is why I can't do that, because I don't do that like that. Right? Secretly, never anything that anybody else could pick up on. And I remember in her prophetic nature, her whispering to me, not only is that going to be you one day you will take this same kind of space, but you are going to kill it, because there is going to be someone who needs to hear your sound. Dealing with sound from a person who had been silenced was an uphill battle. Right? I wanted to be quiet because it was easier to be quiet. And to point back to your question, that's what I'm talking about in the sense of wholeness. It was dealing with that inner thing. That was nothing that no one else could see. Not necessarily a vice that was visible, right? It wasn't something that spilled over and y'all had to see me in several mug shots or, all the things. And whatever your thing is, that's your thing. How it comes out, we want the Lord to heal it however the Lord heals it. But I'm talking about, for me, wholeness wasn't just about what could manifest externally. It was about the deep-rooted work internally. Having a whole mind, right? I don't just want to have a whole lifestyle. I don't want to just have the husband and the children, but be secretly like in and out of the psych ward because I cannot have peace at home or peace in my mind, peace in my spirit, right? The fruits of the spirit, we often learn them in a very trivial way. But the truth of the matter is they're a great compass for wholeness. Because if you don't have joy, you may need to check something at the door. If you don't have peace, you might need to look at something inside, and let's say it could be caused by something externally, right? But if I don't have love, if I can't walk in love, real love, I'm not talking about, the kind that just lands you in the bedroom with your spouse. I'm talking about those people that you have to walk by on Sunday morning on your way into the sanctuary, right? Or having to love people who have wronged you, forgiveness, right? The real big one in the room, the real elephant in the room.
The real F word.
Listen, having to forgive people in spaces that will never offer you an apology, right?
Or conversation.
Or the conversation. That was and is, and it became the benchmark for wholeness for me. I said, I don't want to just look good. I want to be good. I don't just want to sound good. I want to feel good within my actual self. I don't even just want to have good. I want to produce good. Because the other thing is that when you are broken, even if you package it up nice, brokenness still bleeds. People will feel it. People will see it eventually. You can hide it for some time. But I think that's what we are seeing at the celebrity level, in a sense. We are seeing broken pieces, the consequence of living secretly with broken pieces. Suicide rates being at an all-time high with people who have millions in the bank. That's because there is a level of wholeness that we are not, we have misguided for what's visible, what we can put together well. But for me, I came into a place, and this was after I decided to be in therapy and stay in therapy. And even right now, I am in therapy. My husband and I, we have a marriage counselor, not because things are good. She's just there for the month. Hey, we checking in. Because why? I realized that in order to keep peace, to keep joy, to keep wholeness, there is a constant work that I have to surrender myself to. And that's not just interceding before the Lord, but also putting my own hands to the plow, letting certain things when they arise, right, not fester. Hey, Lord, I realize I'm dealing with this. I had something come up recently, and I literally told my cousin, I said, I can't believe that I am still dealing with that. I thought that I was over it.
I just had that conversation with God. Oh my gosh. I just had that conversation with God within the last 48 hours. Like,
And
you
then
think you're good and it's a residue. And I'm like, Lord, why won't you take this? Like, take it. I don't want it.
Something will come up and trigger it. And it was just, I learned, one of my fathers in the gospel, he used to say, God is not going to platform you for you to fall through your own pit holes. Okay. So like, he will keep showing you a thing until it's really dealt with. You will think that you've swept it under the rug well, but until you allow the Lord to literally uproot some stuff, he'll keep bringing it back. And my point is saying that even in the conversation of wholeness, again, is about that constant work. Lord, always creating me a clean heart, renew the right spirit in me. Don't cast me away from your presence. But the truth is, I never want you to take your spirit from me, right? That is a constant prayer for me, because it is your spirit that will reveal certain things about who I am, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, that even I won't want to audibly ever say out loud. It is the Lord, the Holy Spirit, not just meant there to be a comforter, but a counselor, right? To help you walk through some things. And I think we have to realize that wholeness is not a destination, just like life. It is a journey. It is something that I every day have to wake up and say, Lord, you know what? Show me the mysteries of my own heart. As you reveal the mysteries of your heart, Lord, show me my heart, because there are things that didn't even come up. I'm talking about, I must have buried them way below 6 feet under, because as they would come up, I would say to myself, like, I didn't even realize that I was dealing with that. Lord, like, where did that even come from? And he will show you. And as you continue to posture yourself before him and really lay before him honestly, I don't have pity pat conversation with the Lord, right? There are days I'm like, yo, G, what's up? Because I want to be honest enough with the person who already knows anyway. It is not that he doesn't know. It's the fact that I need to know.
Yes.
He needs to show me. And so in order for him to do that, I have to engage in a level of transparency so that every time I feel broken, he can put me right back together again.
I love it. One of the things, Dr. Charity, in this season, it's like he wants another level of transparency with him and honesty, where, church prayer, that's cute. To say this aloud. So, a couple months ago in prayer, and I talked to God like I talked to you. We pray. Of course, we can go off into the clouds, but it starts out here.
Yeah.
And while we're in the clouds, but it was like this, but we're in the clouds. And in that moment, he was like, be honest with me. He was like, you're mad at me.
Wow.
Because of what I allowed to happen. Because of what happened, you're mad at me because I allowed it. And when he said it, I was like, be honest.
Sure.
Like, this is not a trick question. I'm not afraid of your humanity. Just lay it on the table. You're still mad at me because of what I allowed.
Yeah.
And when I said admitted my anger, like something broke.
Yeah.
And he was waiting on me to admit I was beefing with him because
Right.
you let this and this and this and like you.
Yeah.
But that raw honesty,
yes, it will.
was
It'll
so
get you
freeing.
It'll get you
Because
there.
it was like, now we can get to work. Because like, little girl, you've been hot at me all the time. And I knew you were mad at me.
Yeah.
And you still got some heat in your chest about certain things. Because I'm letting some things kind of fall where they are. But let's be honest. And that honesty has honestly taken my prayer life to another level of autonomy, my worship to another level of autonomy, because I'm not holding the secret like, but he knew,
Yeah.
but he
Right.
wanted me to confess that
Yeah.
out of my mouth on my own.
Yeah. No, I understand. Our denominations did not do the best job at allowing us to express the level of emotion with God.
Mm-mm.
The truth is, it wasn't until seminary that I came into the knowledge that God can handle my sadness. God can handle my disappointment. God can handle my anger. And so, since he knows it's there anyway, why not give it to him? And I think even as it pertains to wholeness, right, and stewarding yourself in a season, it behooves us to get honest with God. Because it is at that point that he will say, now let me show you why. Let me show you where. Let me show you how. this is coming back together, right? We believe all things are working together for the good. Sometimes I think we mistake that into believing that all good is only good as God. No. Sometimes he will allow a little heartbreak. Sometimes he will allow a lot of headaches. Sometimes he will allow certain levels of disruptions, right? We call them, or we believe that they are divine disruptions. Being able to believe that the Lord would cause a rift in the road most of the time is to get our attention, or to point our attention or our focus to a new level or to a new place, and being able to change our perspective and being able to say, I'm upset and I am disappointed in this outcome. But the truth of the matter is, what it reveals is that there was still a lack of trust in your goodness. Because the real reason why I would ever be disappointed in something that you take away, believing that what you have for me is better, is because I thought it was best. There was a level of control that my lack of trust would manifest sometimes in the form of my own anger and my sadness with the Lord. Right? I'm sad with you, but why am I sad with the one who knows my beginning and my end? And he knows who will be, he knows the private conversations. He knows what's ahead. That's because I was struggling too with my own lack of trust. Lord, I wanted this. There were some things that the Lord literally said no, and I would turn around and say, but God, I want this for me. And you know what he would say? Have it. Have at it. And when the cookie crumbles, the great thing about him as a lover and as a friend is that even amongst sometimes the disappointments or the frustrations of free will or God's will, he's still there ready. He's ready to give new instructions, new directions, new dimensions to his love and the depth of your relationship, with the intent of bringing you right back into the fold.
Sister, I got to bring you back for part 3. Because you are just like, sprinkling us with the information, and I appreciate it. One more question before we wrap up. One of the things I want to ask you is, how is it for women, or why is it, I should say, ignoring red flags is also often rooted in low self-esteem?
You know, that's so multi-layered. I'm going to try to give you
We
the
might have to
elevator.
pause and come back, but I just had to throw that one out there.
Sure. So the quick answer I would be able to say is, it is often that we don't even realize how insecure that we are. Therefore, we make very insecure decisions with people and other things. I may not have realized that I struggle with the need for affirmation, but I find myself in spaces then needing validation that I don't actually need. And so when that space comes to a demise, I'm at a quagmire, right? Not realizing that it was my own stuff, right? It was this own crevice that somebody or something or even a spirit was able to peep out before I was, right? And come in and take root and take control. One of the things that I found about ignoring red flags, whether we're talking about in the romantic sense or the platonic sense, just like I was sharing about that lack of trust in God, right? How that exposes, like, why would we settle when he has set something aside for us? Why would we settle when we've been set apart for something? The other part of that is because most times we need to deal with the fact that life has convinced us of a worth that's beneath the worth that he has set aside for us. And so I talk a lot about, I'm a plus size girl and I'm good with that thing now, so people don't have to worry. But way back when, elementary school me, middle school me, when I first gained my weight and kids were mean and nasty, there was a part of me that thought I needed to accept it, whoever wanted to accept this thing that I've let other people put on me as a flaw. Right. And so I spent my late teen going into adult childhood years, accepting the type of person, right, that wasn't for me, but because they wanted me, right, I thought that I had to just meet them in the middle, right? I had to come into realizing, one, that's something that other people put on you. You don't take that, right? And that's just in the short version that took time. But the other side of that was like, hey, if he's preparing a table for me in the presence of my enemies, he's also preparing a person for me in the place of my destiny. And I never have to settle for what I think accepts me. Because the truth of the matter is, he is going to invite a person that he has appointed into my space that will love every single crevice, every single. Okay.
And he don't play about you either. Let somebody mess around and find out.
Listen. And so, it is that. It is the point that we need to also be honest with ourselves about the holes that are on the inside. If you are struggling with the thing, or you realize, like, you know what, I don't feel the prettiest. We don't need to keep finding ourselves in spaces that make us only feel pretty in public. But they mismanage and misuse us in private. What we should do rather is deal with the person who is struggling with the physical appearance of who you've come to be. Let the Lord build you up and boost your confidence so that as you enter back in the space where other people have to present themselves worthy, right? You'll be able to say, oh, no, not that. Not that. We're not doing that. Because I know who I am. I know whose I am, and I know what I bring to the table. And choosing to get to the point in your singleness where you aren't bringing your traumas, you aren't bringing your insecurities, you aren't bringing your holes, it's going to set you up for a different standard of people, of life, and to where you won't find yourself settling, but people will have to raise themselves to your standard. And they will. The right people will raise.
I love it. One thing from our co-host, she has a quick question for you, and then we're going to wrap up.
Before we wrap up, what are your key takeaways from our conversation, and where can our listeners find you on social media?
Sure. So I'm all things, it should be Charity Danielle on everything. Now, I did tag them two little letters that I worked hard for. So you'll see that on social media platforms, but most things are _ Charity Danielle or Facebook Charity Danielle. There isn't anything new on YouTube yet, but I will say that the Lord is finally dusting off the cobwebs from some things, and we're considering launching out into the deep. So you'll see some other platforms coming up and see some other things that I think are worth following. As far as key takeaways, the best compass for wholeness are the fruits of the Spirit. And that's not to be deep. That is in a very literal sense. If you find yourself with broken fragments of peace, of joy, of love, double back to that inner space with you and the Father and ask the Lord to heal and repair that in the secret place and in the secret time, but in the single time. Because I'm going to tell you, just like with school, it's easier to do when it's just you. Once you add other people into the mix, it becomes a more complex dynamic. Marriage is not the goal. Mantle is. Okay. And so when you get to the point where you realize that it's not about this visible idea or aesthetic, that you need to strive for, but it is about perfecting the mantle and the mission that the Lord has placed on your life as a person for marketplace and for ministry, you'll realize that marriage is really an embellishment to the belt that you'll wear of jewels. And lastly, it is that the same rubric that you would set forth in your romantic spaces, put it on your friends. Your friends matter. Now and later, your friends matter. So
that's so good. That's why you're here, and that's why you're coming back.
Anytime.
You are thebomb.com, like gem dropper, just full of wisdom. And I think this conversation long overdue, and we're going to continue to have this because I feel like for women, particularly Black women, we need to have these conversations to look at ourselves as people, as individuals, especially right now in this society that is got their foot on the gas trying to erase us even more. The effort is in overdrive and it's insane.
Right.
So this is the time in this space for us to really hold each other accountable, hold each other together, hold each other's arms up and get through this and check on each other and have these real conversations. Not, yes, we want to be married, but just living the single life safe and being successful at it as individuals. I think that is so important.
Yes, absolutely. And to add as another note, marriage is so beautiful. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Motherhood is so beautiful. It is work, both things, but it is beautiful. So it is a beautiful thing to desire. You will just enjoy it differently if you come into that thing with a different level of.
We're going to keep it right there. We're going to put a pin
Okay.
in it because I like that. Thank you again. I hope everyone got something from this conversation. Be sure to hit that notification bell, subscribe, follow me across all streaming platforms. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and I would love to hear from you. You can send me an email at thespeakerpodcast@gmail.com. With that being said, thank you, Dr. Charity. Y'all be blessed. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you again to my guests, and also thank you for joining us on this episode of the Speaker Podcast. If you were late catching the conversation, no worries. Slide over to my YouTube channel and catch the replay. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Help keep the Speaker Podcast ad-free. Hit the link below and buy me a coffee. Your support keeps the podcast free of interruptions while bringing you more impactful conversations.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Speak Her podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at camille.essick, Facebook at the Speak Her podcast, or www.camilleessick.com.